So welcome back to the Dashboard Dojo. So glad that you've joined us today. We'll be talking about reporting on time. I don't know why I dropped the ing on this title, but reporting on time. It was really fun to think through this topic. There's so many aspects to time, and we could actually do more than what we're going to talk about today. I'm very, very interested in what each of you have experienced with reporting on time and any best practices that you might share. So I think why don't we go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everyone to the Dashboard Dojo. My name is David Carnes. I also have Kyle Shagnon with me helping out today. Thanks for doing it again, Kyle.
Good to be here.
Great. All right, so we'll do quick introductions. We'll talk about techniques for reporting on time. I'll show some things in a dev org. That formula seems to have worked well for us over the last year plus. We'll talk about some upcoming Dojo topics. We'll talk about some upcoming OpFocus training events. And I don't think you need to wait till the end for Q&A. Kyle and I can monitor the chat and monitor the Q&A. Either one is fine. We can also take you off mute if you want to raise your hand and share something about what we're talking about. I'm very interested in everyone's experiences with time. I think the reality with something like this is that we all have different kinds of needs and have been exposed to different issues related to time. So my name is David Carnes. I'm the chairman and chief evangelist of OpFocus. I am very honored to be a Salesforce MVP, and I'm also a soccer fan, or the rest of the world calls it football. My local team, or our local team here in New England, had the best record at the end of the regular season. We're now just entering the playoffs, so it's kind of an exciting time. This is Tommy McNamara holding the supporter shield, which the team with the best record at the regular season. So I was just there on Sunday to watch that. So OpFocus is a SaaS revenue operations consulting firm. We work with SaaS companies to help them scale their go-to-market operations. We've been a Salesforce partner since 2006. And this is just a fun way to stay engaged with the community. So glad that you could all join us today. All right, so what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about time calculations. So, when we think about time calculations, we're often thinking about days, hours, business days, and so on. We think about filtering on time. So whether it's field-to-field filters, which I think are perfectly suited for filtering on time, whether it's using relative date values, dashboard filters, and so on. We'll talk a bit about grouping by dates. There's some really nice, simple ways to group by dates to add some pop to your reporting. And then I'll show a few ways with formulas to support the idea of grouping by days of the week or by the month names, which isn't necessarily standard out of the box, but pretty easy to do with row-level formulas. We'll talk about trending. This is another time concept. Salesforce has a variety of different tools that support trending, and that can be confusing in and of itself. So the screenshot on the right here is when you go to create a report on opportunities, the first thing you see is this list of things, and you get down to opportunity history, opportunity field history, opportunity trends, and then opportunities with historical trending, and just getting a sense of what each of these things are and how they may help you solve a particular challenge you have with reporting on time. I don't have an exhaustive list of best practices. In fact, I think it's a pretty wimpy list, and I'm relying on any of you that want to share best practices that you've encountered for reporting on time. So this is what we'll talk about. Let's get started. So the first topic in calculating time. So we have often, within Salesforce, we have cases, we have leads, we have opportunities. We also have the many custom objects that many of us have in our businesses that help us, track what's most important to our business. And, a common thing is to need to calculate how long did something take or how long was something open, that sort of thing. When working with time in particular, it's very important to consider the data types. So for years, we've had date and date time data types. Those are a little confusing because you have fields that say create a date, but it's really a date time, even though the label says it's a date. In recent years, Salesforce has introduced a time data type, and that's one that I haven't done a lot of work with myself, and it'd be interesting to hear if any of you have done work with that. But the data type that you're working with, so when you're creating a report and you're dragging that field onto your report, the data type of that column is going to be pretty important to you to help you try to do math with time. So something that's good to know within Salesforce reporting, or just Salesforce in general, that anytime there's a date, that date is stored in Greenwich Mean Time. So if any of you that are on the call are in let's say you're in Oregon and you're using Pacific time, you enter something, you're seeing that with your time zone. Whereas when I look at it, I see it with my time zone. The way Salesforce manages that is that the actual date is stored in Greenwich. And just so that we can each see things correctly for our own time zone. This is how we keep apples to apples comparison here. When working with calculations and time in Salesforce, when you're working with reporting, row-level formulas can be super helpful. For years and years, we would create custom formula fields down at the object level. And if you're not a sysadmin in your system, you have to go tell what you want to somebody and hope and pray that they write it correctly for you. Now we can actually make our own mistakes writing row-level formulas directly on our reports. So row-level formulas, the last year and a half or so, Salesforce gave us row-level formulas. When they did, they upgraded the formula editor, which is really quite great. And we can have one row-level formula per report. So why do I mention this? Well, we can do things like this screenshot here. We can use a today function, which returns a date and time, and we can subtract the date value of the created date. So the today function, oh, this is funny. I'm just seeing a mistake on my slides. I can't have this mistake. So this is backwards. So now returns date time, and today returns the date. Yikes. I know one of you would have mentioned that if I didn't correct that. But so you can see here with this screenshot down at the bottom that today, because today is returning the date of today, and we subtract the created date, that the date time of the created date, or the data type of the created date, is date time. So we actually have to convert it using a function called date value. So there are functions that will actually return the date time for now, or the actual time without a date. That's a newer function called time now. We also, when creating formulas related to time, we use the date function itself, which allows us to assemble or reassemble a date. We can use the date value function, which is the one that I've got down here, which is converting something from a date time to a date. And then we have the date time value, which goes in the other direction. Sometimes using isBlank is helpful to determine if the date has nothing in it. So this particular formula here, what this is doing is calculating the days since creation. And with my screenshot, I can see the created date. This is a list of, it's either open cases or open opportunities. And I'm seeing that the age that Salesforce creates and calculates versus the one that I created here. And all I've done is left 2 decimal points. That's the only difference. But just to show that we can create this formula. To go take a peek at this formula in the system, if I go here, and I do want to point out something very quirky in the DevWorks that I use, because the data is just ghosted in, it's just loaded in. Sometimes create dates and stuff that the things don't make quite a bit of sense. So between October 1st of 2021 and since April 29th, 2021, the number of days since then, it's 6 months plus a bunch of days. I think it's correct to say it's 195 days. For whatever reason, I might have actually created this org sometime in the middle, and the calculation in the out of the box column isn't useful in this org. So you can see what I've done here with the formula. And just to show you the formula, if I go edit this report, all right, I had to move 4 Zoom windows to get to the edit button. So if I go edit the report, to add a row level formula, we see we can just come to the columns. It's grayed out right now because I already have one on the report. And if I zoom this in a little bit, we can see the days since creation. I'll go ahead and click on my formula and then edit the formula. And you can see how simple this is. So it's using a function called today, which has open paren, close paren, and subtracting the date value of the created date. I would absolutely, when writing formulas like this, use the validate button. If I want to change this to have 0 decimals, I can go ahead and change that. When working with row level formulas, you cannot change the data type. So if I wanted to do this with a different output, such as text, I would need to delete the row level formula and rewrite it, which is easy enough to do. I do want to point out one other thing that I don't know when this was introduced. Maybe one of you knows when this was introduced. So when you click on a row level formula, it shows you the formula. You can edit the formula, and then it allows you to control the summarization. The days of aging, I would probably rather see this in average instead of sum, and this is easy enough to change here. So I like that this has been added. I don't know when it was added to the formula, row level formula capability. I guess what I'm used to is double clicking on this and the formula editor appears. This feels like it's pretty new. But what this does now that I've changed this as an average, if I go ahead and run it, what we'll see is the grand total is the average number of days that these items are open. So the opportunities have been open for an average of 121 days across this pile here. So if we want to display time that a case has been open as a number, we could say for all closed cases, we can take the closed date and subtract the created date. And we can show that again with decimals if we wish. I'm showing this example because I want to show the next example with text as the output. And it's basically a very similar formula. So here's the output here, where we're saying if you subtract November 10th, 2021, and you subtract from that October 5th, 2020, you get 400.68 days. And that's the numeric output of this formula. And this is another very, very simple formula. If I come in here, click and just look at this, just close date minus created date. Now, in this case, I wouldn't do this for open opportunities. I'd probably use an if statement and says, if I have both open and closed, I'd probably say if it's open, use today minus the created date. Whereas if it's closed, use close date minus created date. On this particular report example, I'm just looking at closed cases, so I'm not really worried about that. But you can again see here that I can control the decimal places on the output for that. So if I wanted to do averaging, if I wanted to do some kind of math, I'd probably have the output be numbers here, like the number of days. Whereas in this next example, I have the output as text, and this is writing the formula. You can see here the guts of the formula is actually very similar. It's close date minus created date. However, we're interpreting it differently, and we're having the output be text. And you can see on my screenshot here down in the bottom right-hand corner that instead of showing the number of days, I'm showing, instead of just showing a number, I'm showing 13 days, 0 hours, and 0 minutes. And the way that I'm calculating that is to essentially do the math on, so I'm taking the floor of the close date minus the created date. So whatever that, so a floor function is basically saying, forget about the extras, forget about the decimals. So take that floor level and use the text and put the word days after it. So this text function is converting the number into text. And then I'm using a concatenator to put then quote space days space, then using another concatenator to add the next block of text, which is doing some math to generate the number of hours. And then the next block is concatenated doing math to generate the number of minutes. And we can see this one in action as well. So this is the same 468. I've got the same data. I just copied the formula and wrote it a little differently in this case. There we go. So it's the same 400 days, 16 hours, and 18 minutes. And if I go back to my, so I guess 0.68 equals 16 hours. And I guess that feels right. Out of 24 hours, that 0.6 would be 16, just beyond half. So, depending on what our goal is, we may want numbers as the output, we may want text as the output, but we can do that using formulas and using basic math.
Pablo had a question around if Salesforce only allows for one row level formula field. Is that correct?
Yes, Pablo, exactly right. Just one. And this is why it's important to know, like if you're not a sysadmin in your system, but you still need to get report work done, and you may want to have multiple formulas, you may still need to create a custom formula field. So for this, I absolutely could have just created custom formula fields for time case open, and I could have done it at the object level and used in Enterprise Edition. You can have 500 custom fields per object. You could use a few of those potential fields to support reports, and those custom formula fields may never be on a page layout. They're just to support reporting. So to go a little deeper into the swimming pool, we can do more interesting things. And this example I didn't write. I found it. I think it was in the Salesforce help, the samples, and I want to show you those sample files. I did a little tinkering with it to make it do exactly what I wanted it to do, but basically this is calculating business hours. So, sort of the old cheap and cheerful way of doing business hours was to do the same date calculation and then multiply it by 5/7. So if you have 5 business days out of 7 in a week, and so you basically divide the whole thing by 7 and then multiply by 5, and you're determining the number of business. So in that case, I guess it'd be business days. This is going one step further and multiplying it by 8 to give you the business hours. So even one step beyond that. But to determine how many business hours since the case was created, we might use 2 date time values. And in this case, we're using the value now, which has the output of date time. And then we're also using, there's a piece in this formula that's looking at the year 1900. And it's looking, it's doing that for a very specific reason, and of course it's escaping me right now why that formula is doing that. But basically, we're using this as part of the math for. I think this is a date. I think this is a date that's a Sunday. I think this is why, and we're determining which day is the date to determine where to reference from. For like if we're doing it on a Sunday and going backwards, we'd have Sunday as a non-business day and Saturday as a non-business day. That's why it's doing it. It's actually figuring out a Sunday, like where are we from this original Sunday date going back to 1900. But basically it spits out an age in hours that you could use. So there's a couple of ways to do this. I mentioned dividing 5 by 7. So multiplying by 5 divided by 7, the number of days would give you business days. If you multiply that by 8, it's giving you the number of business hours. This is going one step further to be even more precise about which day are you starting from, and is there a weekend in the middle, and how many weekend days, et cetera.
And Victor had a question around if there's a way to factor in holidays to exclude those hours as well.
No, and this is where this, we've got to be comfortable with some amount of precision. Salesforce has the business hours within the service cloud. So we can take advantage of business hours and business holidays, and that has to do with some very specific functionality within the service cloud, but that doesn't apply to this. So you might need to do some kind of averaging of, if your organization has 10 company holidays a year, that's less than one per month, and you figure it out that way. Just do some kind of averaging.
And we had another question around how many summary level
Summary.
form. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So Asmita, great question. So how many summary formulas can you have? You can have 5 summary formulas per report. Those formulas cannot relate to each other. Then they can't be built off of each other, but they can sit side by side for each other. And summary formulas are really great for doing time calculations of stage duration. So a topic that I didn't include in the dojo today would be, if you wanted to do like how long do deals stay in each stage on average, there's some structure you'd need to build out. You'd want to have a timestamp field for every stage. So let's say you have 9 stages in your sales process. You'd require a timestamp field for each stage, and you'd require some kind of a flow or process builder every time the stage changes to populate the timestamps. If that's in place and every opportunity in your system has timestamps for every stage that it's hit, then we could use summary formulas to measure the stage to stage, like what's our average from qualified to closed won? What's our average for qualified stage to closed lost? You could do those calculations using summary formulas. So Lynette asked the question, so if my business was closed on a Sunday and Monday, I would need to use a different date. Yes. And so there's also let me actually show you, there's sample formulas, and Kyle, perhaps you can copy and paste those into the chat. There are 3 help files that I want to share with all of you. So within here, it talks about, like, let's say you have a 9-hour business day and not a 7-hour business, not an 8-hour business day, and you want that reflected in your calculations. Or if you want to adjust by a day of the week, if your business week starts on Saturday or Monday or something like that, there are comments in here. So Lynette, that would need to be changed to support what you're asking. I don't think it would be a 1-9. I think it would be so you're asking for if it was closed on Sunday and Monday. We're just trying to think how much. So they're using 7. I just need to look at it to just dig into exactly what they're doing with this. So they're dividing this by 7. I don't know that 9 makes sense on this, but I can look at it to figure out exactly what would be Sunday and Monday, and maybe somebody else can pick it out while looking at the while we continue on. To shift gears, we just took a peek at the power of formulas and helping us do calculations. There are other features within Salesforce reporting to help us do what we need to do with time. One that was introduced in the last couple of years is field-to-field filtering. So this is helpful for comparing date values on a single record. So you could say, perhaps like the example here is if the last modified date is greater than the close date, maybe we're suspicious about that someone who went back to change an opportunity after it was closed. And we just want to see, has anybody been making changes to the opportunities after they're closed? Well, we can do that now with field-to-field filtering. So field-to-field filtering is helpful for filtering on numbers, dates, and date time fields. It's important that the data types match. In fact, that's really the only way you can do it, is to have the data types match. I believe if we needed to, we could use a row level formula to change a data type to allow us to do this kind of comparison. So that's kind of an interesting combination of features. But you can see the screenshot example here, again, on opportunity, saying the last modified date is greater than the close date. So I think field-to-field filtering is perfect for date, doing date calculations. Perhaps at OpFocus, we have a project object. We have all kinds of information being tracked and dates on the projects. We could compare, let's say we have 30 fields that are date related. We could compare 2 of those using the field-to-field filtering. So you can have up to 4 field-to-field filters per report. And these do not work with joined reports or reports whose report type has that A records may or may not have related B records. Is the audio okay, Kyle?
Yeah, I think it sounds good.
Okay, I just got a internet unstable.
Pablo agrees.
Yeah, Pablo, I think it's a good point. Like, you know, Pablo asked the question, he said, when it gets this complex, I'm better asking my admin to create a new formula field. That absolutely may be true. What I want you to all do is make sure that you test whatever you create. And when you do testing, like the perfect thing is actually to have a report in front of you with the columns that are supporting the calculation. So I was looking at this and looking at it and saying, something's not right with these numbers. Well, I'm in a ghosted system. This is a dev org where the data was just, you know, just loaded in an instant, 1,600 cases. So what did I do? I just went and I took an existing case and reopened it and closed it again. And suddenly, instead of these 00 time numbers, I have this 8:18 a.m. time number. And then suddenly I have a slightly more interesting result. And this is the correct number. I was suspicious about these other ones. It just has to do with the funky source data that comes in these dev orgs. But I find it very helpful when testing to look at each of the source values plus the formula side by side. And I may also go modify some records to just confirm what I'm finding with the data. It was really, you know, it's sort of humbling to create a formula and go, this something's not right here. And I felt like I read the formula right, but it was just something funky with the data in these dev orgs. One of the other help docs that Kyle included in the chat window is the relative date filter reference. This is a screenshot from it probably 10 years ago, which makes me laugh because it looks quite different now. And if I go into this, the list looks, it's just gotten longer and longer as the years go by. This is useful so much more than just for reports. It's in reports and dashboards. It's also useful in basically any filter in the system. So if you're creating a workflow rule, you're creating list views, you're writing lead assignment rules, stuff like that, you can use these relative date values. My suggestion would be to use them with equals or not equals as you get started using them. People get into trouble with greater than or less than. So if you say, I want this, everything greater than yesterday, well, greater than yesterday means today. It has nothing to do with yesterday. It's after yesterday. So you can make mistakes with greater thans and less thans. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm just saying, you know, when you get started with this, it's probably easy to stick with equals and not equals. But what does this allow us to do? Well, we can do things in our filters like yesterday, today, tomorrow. We can literally write these words and they will forever be dynamic when this report or when this dashboard is run. There's some ones that are really cool and useful, like, you know, 6 weeks ago, next 4 weeks, because you have very specific reporting situations with time. Next n months, last 62 days, next 41 days, 3 days ago. This is one that, you know, if you're looking for data specifically 3 days ago, what happened 3 days ago? Last quarter, this quarter, next quarter, last year, next year, this year. Over the years, Salesforce has continued to add to this list, last n fiscal quarters, next n fiscal quarters, and so on. So very, very helpful page. And I want to show you kind of a neat way that I've used this within a dashboard. So I know Pablo's tried dashboard filters and discovered sort of a quirk in the plumbing for how, you know, you have a single dashboard, you can have up to 20 components. Well, the thing that you've filtered the dashboard with may or may not be applied to everything on the dashboard. But in the case that it does, so I've created a simple sales dashboard showing closed opportunities just to do analysis. Well, I can add a filter on that dashboard. Adding the filter is simple. You literally edit the dashboard, click add filter, and then specify the field you want, and then you can add filter values. Well, when you add filter values, you can have them be for specific calendar days, or they can be relative. And when you choose relative, you're using those words in the relative date list. So I've got last week, this week, and so on here. So if we go look at this in our system, I actually think I didn't leave this one open. So let's go find the dashboard tab. So, I might do sales analysis once a quarter looking back. This dashboard has all closed opportunities. And right now it's remembered that I was looking at it with this month. Well, I can run it with this week and we'll see the data change. It'll essentially rerun the dashboard and look at the data for this week. So it looks like there are no closed opportunities this week. Well, what if I switch it to this quarter? So it's basically rerunning all the source reports. It's redrawing all the charts and allows me to have a filter on a dashboard. So I really like this, especially looking back on closed, to allow you to basically get more value out of your dashboard.
And Bobo, it's not really a question, more of a comment, but he doesn't like that you have to manually define the filter values. I guess it'd be a feature request, but it'd be cool if they dynamically displayed a drop-down or pick list of available values.
I think that would be a good feature request. There's precedent for what Pablo is asking for. When you go work in a variety of places in the system with a pick list, it shows you the list of pick list values. So in filters on a report, if you choose a pick list, it shows you the values. I don't know why they didn't do that, Pablo, but I understand what you're saying. There's a limit to 50 values on a dashboard filter. So a single filter can have 50 values. We can also do interesting things like put commas between them. And if I wanted to do this week or last week, I could. So why don't I just do that example just to show you, because it's so easy. So to add a filter, I'm editing the dashboard. I could just click add filter, but to modify this existing filter, I'll just go ahead and click the pencil. And if I want to add another value, so this is what Pablo's less than satisfied with. If we click add filter value, like why doesn't it just give me the list here to type ahead? So, but just to show this particular example, I could do this week, comma, last week, and have more than one choice. So I'd leave the value alone, and what I could say, I could simplify the display text and call it this or last week. And then save it, and that change is instantly available.
I guess you say he's referring to the filter list itself on the dashboard, showing the available pick list.
Okay. So here's that new value that and this will run it for both this week and last week, the combined. Okay. So what Pablo is talking about is when you go to add a filter, like what are the fields available? I guess I see the fields available here. Maybe I'm not understanding. I was referring to the filter list itself on the dashboard, the filter list itself. So maybe chat isn't the right way to figure this out, but oh, you're saying to just build it. Anyway, Pablo, we can circle back on that together. So another topic with reporting is grouping the report results. So it's quite common to want to group by dates. And when you group by dates, Salesforce has a list of groupings that are available. So on a date field or a date time field, we can see the default is kind of confusing. It actually will group what your report. So if you group it by date time open, which I did here, the default is it groups by day, which almost nobody wants. I think very, very rarely do I want to look at by individual days. And that's what we're seeing here. There's one record, one record, one record. Okay, October 5th is 2 records. But we can also switch it to calendar week, calendar month, calendar quarter, calendar year, or fiscal year. And I think all of these are helpful. But keep in mind that if you need another grouping, if I want days of the week, or if I want months of the year, and I just want the text so I can do something else with it, I might want to write either a row level formula or a custom formula field to achieve that. So to use no formulas, just to point out of the box, there's a really nice thing you can do with opportunity close date. And if you use the close date field, and there's a second field out of the box called close date 2, this actually predates formulas in Salesforce. This is how long ago this goes back. But if you group by that twice, you can do interesting things like this bottom chart here. So this is actually showing the seasonality of a business, and it's looking at by January, by February, by March, etc. It's grouping by calendar month, and within that, it's grouping by calendar year. So I might call this year over year by month. And you can see here 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 for January, and then so on. And you can actually look and see there are certain months of the year where this business, there are dips, and you can look for seasonality in that. So again, the first grouping, if you add the close date field as a first grouping and a close date 2, it doesn't matter which order these are in, it's the same information. But that innermost one, the top one, if you go and choose to group that by calendar month and year, and just save that, and then you do this, go to the second one, the close date 2, and do that by calendar year, you can achieve this type of trending. It's very, very simple. You could do this with lead creation, leads created by, it could be quarter and month, or it could be year and quarter, or it could be, year and month. You could do this with cases based on case creation. You could do this on opportunity creation. You could do this on opportunity close date, which is what the example is here to show the sum of sales by year, year over year by month. So I really like this a lot. To achieve one of these sort of custom groupings, in this case, I'm looking to do a grouping by day of the week, and I want to sort it. So if I just want the values Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I don't care about the sort order of those, which I'll do in the next example. But in this example, I care about the sort. And so what I'm going to do is prepend the output with 1, 2, 3. And you can see here in my formula, I've got a 1.Sunday, 2.Monday, 3.Tuesday, etc. And this will just allow me to do what I've got here on this bottom chart, to just group the 7 days in order and look at essentially which days of the week are we getting our most cases. Maybe we want to staff Mondays and Fridays with more support people to handle the typical workload. So just kind of interesting analysis on cases over time and which day of the week is the cases coming in the most. So the way that we're doing this is to use a case function, and that case function is basically saying, take the date value of the created date and figure out which day of the week is it. Is it a Monday, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? It's using a mod function when it's doing this, and this starts to get into interesting things. So what a mod function does is it basically, you use it with division and you take the remainder. So if the remainder is 0, we know it's a Sunday. And this goes back to that 1900, that January 7th is a Sunday. It's kind of like the original Sunday. And so if we divide that by 7, you get 0, it's a Sunday. If the remainder, when you divide by 7, is a 1, it's a Monday, and so on. So this is giving us the grouping of the days of the week. Well, I could do the same thing. And this is a custom formula field. I just decided to basically create it at the object level. So Pablo said, hey, when it gets complicated, maybe we give it to the admin and they do it at the field level and at the object level. Another reason for that is you might want to use this formula in multiple reports. So I'd probably create it as a custom formula field as opposed to just as a row level formula. So another example of this would be grouping by month in a year. And in this case, I didn't really care to sort the months. So I didn't put a 1, 2, 3, 4 in front of the January, February, March. Basically, this output, sorting the output by which one has the most ops created by month. And so June and August both have, looks like 25 or so, and then July and September and so on. But this is still allowing me to group the opportunities by month, and it's the create month. And what I'm doing is using another case. So this is a row level formula, but it could be a custom formula field on opportunity as well. What I'm doing is I'm taking the date value of the created date. So I'm converting created date from a date time to a date, and then I'm plucking out the month, and the month is returned in a number. And in the case where that value is a 1, I'm going to return the text of January. If it's a 2, February, and so on. So this is just using the case function, which allows us to evaluate a value, compare it to something, and then spit out a corresponding output for each. So really a powerful way to replace values using this case function. To shift gears a bit and just talk about a few of the other time-related tools in the system, out of the box in Salesforce for the last 100 years or so has been this feature called Opportunity Trends. It predates my use of Salesforce, so it goes back to at least 2005 that this has been there. But it's basically an out-of-the-box trending tool, and what it does is it just snapshots the opportunity data on the first day of every month. So this is specific to opportunities. That's a special report type. There's no setup required to take advantage of it. And when you take advantage of it, there are some special columns and filters that are available. And you can see on my screenshot on the right that I can group by the current stage. I can group by the historical stage. I can also group by the as of date. And typically we do that with columns to see, as of this first day of the month, what did our pipeline look like? And as of the next day, the next month, what did the pipeline look like, and so on. And it's a nice way. I don't have an output to share, and I don't have months of changes in this dev org that I'm working with, but just to point out, using this can give you a really nice view of like, what's our sales cycle look like? You know, from the moment that an opportunity is created, how long does it take to go close that opportunity till it's won or done? And you can actually show it visually by just using these groupings. And it'd be combining the filter of, for all the deals that were open then, where are they now? And you could group by the current stage. So filter it based on what was open a year ago and look at the current stage, and you can visually see everything ultimately becoming won or lost as the months go by. So I really like this. The one problem with this is it's the first day of every month and you can't change it. And if you miss it, or some deals weren't updated at the close the week, you know, the Friday night before it was the end of the month and stuff didn't get updated, you kind of miss the window. So it's just, we don't have any control over it. It just does it the first day of the month.
And Tracy is asking, can you add in each stage?
So what that's going to do is it allows you to see the stages. So I guess I'm not really clear what you mean by add in each stage. It's going to, so this is an automatic feature that Salesforce runs once a month on the first day of the month. And whatever the current stage is of each opportunity, that's what's going to be snapshotted. And we can group by, using this report type, we can group by what's the current stage, or we could say, as of this date in the past, what was the stage? So you can group by either the historical or the current, but I'm not sure what you mean by adding in each stage.
And Victor asked, so essentially this automatically snapshots without having to explicitly build a snapshot.
There's no snapshotting. There's no work required here of an admin or anybody. It's just available to you. Now, one reason that I didn't like this, and you know, I mentioned already, is if you miss the day, it's just always the first day. It can't be once a week. It can't be on the 15th of the month. It's just the first day of the month. It just is what it is. Now, this next feature, actually 2 features from now, we'll talk about reporting snapshots, and reporting snapshots will let you specify first day of the month, last day of the month, once a week, and you can be more precise about when that You can specify the time, so every Monday night at 11 p.m., that sort of thing, if you want to be more precise. Another feature that's very, very simple to turn on is called historical trending. This is not new, it's been around for a while. This can be enabled for opportunities, cases, forecast items if you've enabled forecasting. And you can also use it on up to 3 custom objects. So if any of you have a custom object for tracking projects and you want to track changes to projects and the flow of your projects, you could potentially use this to look at what were, let's say you had a field on the project that's a pick list called project health. All the ones that were in yellow last week, where are they now? Are they in a better place? So you could do interesting things with this. This tracks up to 3 months of changes plus the current month. So 3 prior months plus the current month. When you turn this on for an object, a special report type is added to your system. So under setup, if I go setup, feature settings, analytics, reports and dashboards, historical trending, and if I click on an object like opportunities, it's a checkbox to turn it on. So check the box, click save. You want to do this days or weeks before you want to use it. You want to turn this on so some time can go by and you can actually have some data to look at. Once you enable this, Salesforce creates a custom report type. It's called opportunities with historical trending. And this is a very special report type. It allows you to use up to 5 historical, you can compare up to 5 historical dates. For sales, I tend to do 7 days ago versus today. So I'll pick my snapshot date to be 7 days ago, but you can see here I've clicked the plus to add another one. And I can see 1 month ago, 2 months ago, and so on. There's a long list you can scroll through: 30 days ago, 7 days ago, 1 day ago, stuff like that. So that's my date that I'm comparing with. And what you can see here in the bottom screenshot is that whatever the snapshot date is, doesn't matter. It's going to show you a historical column plus the current column. And I tend to put the historical, I'll just move that column immediately to the left. So I can see this is what the values were 7 days ago. And this is what the value is now. And what we can do is show green or red. For pick lists, it's always going to be green. So if you only allow stages to go one direction, that's good. So in this case, if it goes from prospecting to perception, that's going to show up as green because it's a change. With things like close dates and dollar amounts, we can actually show red or green if it's a positive or negative change. We can control which shows as red or green. We can also choose to control whether we show just that the change has occurred or the actual amount of the change, such as +8 days or -13 days. So really, really nice feature here. When you work with this, I've got the screenshot up here in the top right. There are special filters that are available. There are special columns you can show. So typically what I might do is show for all the stages that were not lost, for all the opportunities that were not lost 7 days ago. And that's what this, I'm adding a filter here. So where the close date equals 7 days ago, you know what, I don't even need this filter. I would get rid of this filter. This doesn't make sense in my example. What I would do is just the second filter where the stage historical is not closed 7 days ago. So basically, based on the snapshot of 7 days ago, if it's not closed 7 days ago, where is it now? And I might then look at the list and I can see where everything, the pluses and minuses and whatnot. So I really like this. This is like for heads of sales operations. This is just very powerful to just know what changed. So, if you've ever walked into a room and had a CRO, head of sales, scream at you, where did the $1 million go? And you're like, this is one way to have a clue. So if you're working in the nonprofit world, this works the same for fundraising. And, where did this big grant go that we were tracking last week, but it's not in this list of open deals this week? The last topic we'll talk about is reporting snapshots. This is the one where it requires an admin to do a little bit of work for you. These are sourced by tabular or summary reports. These can support daily, weekly, or monthly trending. You can snapshot up to 2,000 records at a time. the piece here that becomes a little complicated for people is the data is stored in a custom object. So in Enterprise Edition, you can have up to 200 custom objects. So that's a lot. And you could use one of them to store your snapshot data. So this is opportunity data snapshotted, and this is the output of the snapshot. So this is a report that was created on that snapshot object, and it's every open opportunity, and it's grouped by stage and summing the dollar amount. And this basically tells a story of the last 52 weeks visually of what our open pipeline looked like. And typically when I do something like this, I do the stage closest to close. I'd group that at the bottom, so it more resembles your funnel, your fundraising funnel, or your sales funnel. But I've got my contracting stage at the bottom, and that's in this orangey color. And then prospecting looks like it's a light blue, and whatever the thing after prospecting, let's say it's qualification. And these are the dollars in each of those stages by week. So interesting, sort of telling a story of the health of the open pipeline, and are we marketing enough to generate leads to become qualified opportunities, and so on. Just to show you two more pieces of how this is put together. I'd say it's 6 steps to set it up. You'd create a snapshot report folder, and then you'd create a source report. That source report to snapshot opportunity pipeline would be like 5 columns, right? You don't need a lot to do it. What is the deal? Who owns the deal? What's the stage close date amount? Maybe you have 1 or 2 other fields. But when you create that source report, you save it in that folder, and then you create a custom object to store each of the values in the report. So you'd create a field for each column in your source report. You'd also create an additional field called date, and that's going to store the date of the snapshot. Once the ingredients are created, you create your source report, you have your target object. The next step is also for an admin to go create, essentially define the snapshot and schedule it. And then once those pieces are in place, some time goes by and data starts filling in because the snapshot's running and pumping into the target object. You can create, build reports and dashboards off that target object. To show you what this looks like behind the scenes, this was actually created. I created this more than a decade ago, so 11 years ago. And just to show you, and I included some columns that we just don't need. Like, I don't know why I included the account ID and the opportunity ID. I thought we might want them sometime, but never use them. I've got the amount, the close date. Salesforce generates the thing called execution time. You just want a field to stick it in the target object. But then I've got opportunity name, opportunity owner, and stage. So really not a lot here. But basically, you create your source report and you specify that. You specify the target object. So you have an admin create the target object for you with each of the fields. And then you choose who the running user is. And this has to be somebody who's high enough to have the data visibility to the records that you want. It might be the head of sales. So your head of sales, you put her name in here to be the running user, perhaps. And then you schedule it. So at OpFocus, we run it every Monday night at 11 o'clock. And this thing's run like clockwork for years and years and years. There's a quirk to it that it schedules the end time a month out. You want to just push that out. We pushed it out to 2099. So when OpFocus is over 100 years old, or getting close to 100 years old, this will still be running probably. But, and you can come in here and troubleshoot and see how many records and was it successful and all that. So, if any of you have best practices, it'd be really interesting to hear, your own experiences reporting on time. If you want to raise your hand to come off mute, I'll just share a couple. I want everybody who's reporting on time to be comfortable with row level formulas, summary formulas, and custom formula fields. Now, you may not have to write the custom formula fields, but you'd have to know enough to ask an admin to do it for you. So very, very powerful to help you solve problems with reporting on time. I like when I test these to include source columns. So each column that's included in my calculations, I include that on the report next to the output. And maybe when I'm finally creating this output to share with somebody, I remove the source columns, but while I'm testing it, then I might sort. So if we go look at this in the system and I go back to one of these ones that I left open I might literally just sort by the date time opened. And now I'm looking at the, and I can literally just look through an eyeball, are these results correct? And you could, easily scan thousands of records perhaps to see if it's working correctly. I mentioned the relative date filter reference, super helpful. We can use those in a number of ways, just in our regular report filters. We can use them in dashboard filters and so on. Anybody have any other experiences to share? I know I sense some of you have frustration with reporting on time with reports and dashboards, but anybody have any experiences that others might benefit from? All right. Well, I will think up some more and share some more. I just, I think a lot of what I look to solve with reporting on time formulas really help out a lot. So that list that Kyle put into the chat hopefully is helpful to you, of those couple of files in the help documentation. So we talked about a bunch of stuff today: time calculations, filtering on time, grouping dates. We talked about trending a bit. We do have an upcoming show and tell, and I'd love your help. Since nobody shared any best practices today, maybe you can all come back and share something you're really proud of that you worked on. Maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes. If you talk about, this is what I was trying to solve, this is what I considered to solve it, and maybe a screenshot of how you solved it. That would be super cool if any of you would be willing to do that. I thought to expand beyond my own reporting to ask any of you to share just show and tell for the group. So it'd be great to have 5 or 10 people raise their hand to show some stuff that they've done. On the 15th, I thought to close out the year in the dojo on year-over-year reporting. So we looked at a little bit of it today with the grouping, but I think there's more that we can do. There's more types of calculations that companies want to do year over year. So you can register for both of these. As always, if you've got ideas for topics that might be useful to you looking into the new year, please go ahead and reach out with those. So Nadav shared, I had a use case where I had to report on contacts, not contact in the last 90 days. Ooh, this is a good one. Where contacted is by activity. And it looks like Kyle moved it, so I can't see it.
Shoot, sorry.
It's okay. I'm teasing. Where contacted is by activity of a certain type. Ooh, that's really good. So I'm curious if Nadav rolled that up. I'd love to have you share that at the next session, Nadav. And we've got 2 classes coming up. February, I'll teach our 5-day admin class. This is OpFocus's admin class for Salesforce administration. Help prepare people for the admin cert. I'll also teach our 2-day reporting workshop, March 1st and 2nd.
My name is David Carnes.
Oh, geez.
OpFocus's
That's too funny. Somehow I clicked on the link. So if any of you have any additional questions, we can stay on for another minute or so and see if it looks like there's a couple more that have come in. So Nadav said, the users want to see only the most recent activity record. That was the challenge. Yes, I think that's a really good challenge. And Salesforce's out of the box last activity is a quirky thing. So if you're willing to share that, Nadav, that'd be really great in the next session. All right, I don't see other questions coming in, but thank you for joining the dojo, and hope to see you next time. Thank you, Kyle.
Of course. Thank you, everyone.